Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It is March 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And as you can see, we just had a range day. Originally, I was playing the highs and lows, but as you start to see the resistance at a consistent place, drop it down. So most of your highs were around 3,900, and most of your lows were around 3,870. Looks like on this last move down, we actually tested those very lows. Um, Most of the price action was in the upper half of this two-tiered range. We got kind of stuck in the middle of this smaller one. We've got a couple of smaller ranges in here too, but the clear trends back and forth, up and down. Um, Fairly straightforward day. The volatility was a little lower today, and just a sideways day. But let's back out. Let's go through the trades, and we'll wrap it up. There's quite a few trades today, all the same. There weren't as many this afternoon. And there's a couple in here that you could have argued for them to be green or whatever that I didn't mark. And we'll talk about those when we get to them maybe. But, just because I don't mark every trade doesn't mean that there wasn't a possibility that looked a little different on your chart, or you might have seen it a little differently than me. But anyway, 7 o'clock came as we're moving down right here this morning. And you notice you get a two-legged move down, and this is a double top. And somebody asked me this today on the forum. They said, well, I thought you could count a double. Basically, they went long right here. They had on this engulfing bar, and they got burned. And then they wondered why a second entry failed. And basically my answer is, notice this is a double top, and this is just one leg down, so you're probably going to get another leg down. The whole idea behind second entries is we're looking for two legs. And then he fired back, I thought that a double top could be counted either way. Well, it can be counted either way, but you decide how you're going to count it based on the context of the chart. And when you see this big move down and this double top, that looks like one leg of correction. And there's a spike in channel here anyway, so you're closing outside your channel. So be real hesitant. Really what you should do is draw your short-term channel down, and you can see there's no reason to go long yet. So and on this one, the signal bar is horrible anyway. The problem was he went long here. If he'd have waited here, he probably wouldn't have gone long. And then you finally get a higher low right here, and it breaks lower and fails and turns up. I like going long one tick above that, or you could just wait. A lot of times it's better to wait. Of course, now if you wait, what's going to happen is you're going to be going long right into the highs, which is probably okay here because this is a fairly strong trend up. It's a spiking channel, and we're probably going to get a move back to test at least the highs or the lows of this little range right here, which would be right in here. And that's exactly, if you put the line across here, you can see that's exactly what we did. We came back and tested these lows, and if you look across here, that's the highs of these bars. And so the way I would play this one, this is a pretty big bar, so you might let it break higher and then let it back, drop a limit order a few ticks back in and see if you can get a better entry. And you would have got a much better entry. You could have gotten an entry all the way back down to right in that level right there, just the upper middle part of the bar. And that makes it a lot safer getting out. And it doesn't matter anyway, it takes off, but at least you give yourself a chance in case it does find resistance. So keep that in mind. But we get a break, two legs up, and then it reverses. Exactly, I mean, it's perfect price action. And I marked this one green. Notice how we're just kind of going sideways and prices try to go higher. That far away from the EMA, that's probably going to trap traders that don't know any better. I like going short right there. And that's a quick move down. The better move is to wait on a lower high, which is here, and you don't get a very good signal bar. And then you get a failure right here, but by that time it looks like a range. You can see that little sideways stuff. But notice we move on down, make a lower high, and then you get a first entry, and you get a second entry with a fairly good signal bar, and that does confirm that trend line a few times there. I like going short there. You get another two-legged move back here, but not a good enough signal bar. And then we run on down to a new high and we reverse. And you might try to go long here. Notice that you had all these little matching lows and it breaks lower and fails and turns and goes up. I'd wait for this to close. That looks like rejection now. Big signal bar. Go long. You might go long one tick above that. This is aggressive, and a lot of these are going to fail, but if you catch these, look at the move you get. And most of the time you'll catch a runner. Generally, you're better off to wait on this higher low, which comes right here. And again, it breaks lower first and turns and goes out the other side. I like going long one tick above that. A lot of you struggle with these engulfing bars. You see an engulfing bar and you think you can automatically take a long or a short or whatever. You need to be careful with these. Most of you, if you're new to this, you probably should wait till they close, and then you could go one tick above that one. Just make sure you got enough room to get out before you hit the EMA. Right here, it doesn't even matter. You can see it just takes off. There's a failed second entry short here. I don't necessarily like this one because it doesn't get back to the trend line. It doesn't get back to the EMA. It's kind of out there, and you're going high right into the high of the bar to the left of it. It's just not a very good setup. So I marked it just to point it out and talk about it because I know somebody will ask me about it, but it's not an ideal setup. So we move on up. We get a little bit of a close outside. It's kind of hard to say if that's convincing. Moves to a new high, and notice we do try to make another new high, and that's probably why we really just start going sideways here. And you could treat this like a failed breakout. It's another one you could mark green, but it looks a little sideways. And notice that it is a first entry, second entry, and it is a failed breakout, but generally you need a lower high just to be sure that you're reading it right. You don't get one though, but you may take that trade. And here's a good example of what happens when you take a failed breakout. Look how far we are away from the EMA, but you get trapped right there. We know it's going to go back up, but sometimes your timing's not very good. But if you wait on a higher low, that gives you more information, and we don't really get a higher low on this one. You get one here, but that's just congestion. That's not rejection until here. You can see the rejection starting in there, but you can't enter on that bar. So we work up and then we start working back down again. There's a failed second entry long here. This actually breaks lower first and then turns up. But when it instantly turns back down, drops and closes here, and if it breaks below that, we're probably going lower. And that's what happens there. I like that one on a trap. Just a first entry here, bar's too bullish. Then you make a new low and you get a first entry right here. And then a second entry right here. Nice bearish bar. And you do try to push up 3 times. So that's, you're getting that triple test or double test right there. This doesn't quite make the same high, but you still try to go higher twice there and it fails. And you get a second entry short. First break of that trend channel. I like that one. And that's a quick, easy move down. You actually get a second a tip and then it turns up. It's just the first entry there, so you can't go long right there. And it's unfortunate because it runs straight up. Would have been a nice trade. And then you don't really get a chance to go short either. That's a fairly bearish signal bar. And there is a little break out of this. So if you had a really good signal bar up here, that far away from the EMA, you could take that trade. But on my chart, it's not good enough. And we bounce. It's a shame that we're getting these big moves and you're just not getting any good setups. But finally, you get a lower high here. I like going short there. It's close to the EMA, but we've been going back and forth. I'm going to take that trade. And then here's your failure, and that's the better one. Notice the new high, first entry, and then you get a second entry long. It fails right at the key entry point, confirms it. Just go short there if it breaks lower and look at it run straight down. Now you get an overshoot, a close outside. There's another second entry short there. I don't think I would have taken it even if it was a good signal bar, but the signal bar precludes you from taking it. But it drops on down and you're kind of bouncing. This is one you might take again, but I still say wait on a higher low, especially one like this. But that's another one you could argue to be green. But notice how we don't really get rejection right away. That's that's a chance you get stopped out there. Notice how we don't get back to the high and it turns back down. And then finally it breaks lower. And you could really look at that as a new swing high because it broke above that little matching highs right there. And so that would make this a first, second entry. Irregardless, it's still a failed breakout. And you're a long way away from the EMA. It's a fairly bullish bar. Prices are probably going back. I'd wait on a higher low, which comes here. And this gets you closed back inside the range. Generally, you want to see that act as support, but the fact that we closed inside of it, when we've been in that range so long, we're probably going back into it. I like going long there. If this would have closed underneath the EMA or underneath the support, nope, I'd have waited. The support's actually a little bit lower right there. And this one's actually a little bit higher. So we run on up. There's a second entry long right here. And this is another one you might have played. Notice the new high, and you get a first entry. I don't know which way this broke higher or lower first. I'm not sure which way this one broke. My guess is it broke higher, turned down, and then went back up. So if you played it you could play this as an engulfing bar on that second entry. Plus, it's off that key entry point. And if you do, the key is your safety stop has to go here until this bar closes and makes a higher swing low. Then you can drop it up, move it up to here. Doesn't matter because it takes off, but again, that's one you could argue to be green. I just wasn't sure which way it broke, and that would have a lot to do with it, really. We run on up, we get close to these highs, and we're just chopping sideways. Don't go long into that. Then we pull back. Unfortunately, that's only a first entry. There's a hidden second entry in there, and this does break lower and turn and go out the other side. But you're back inside this range, and that makes that one a little bit iffy. So I think you're better off to skip it. You get another second entry here, but look at the signal bar, way too bearish. Your higher lows too bearish. And then you do get a double test, but in another second entry right here, notice the high, first entry, second entry, plus you get a double test. But look at that signal bar. No go, even though it takes off. And the thing is, it took off, but the next time you take the same trade, it won't take off. It's not consistent enough. It's not a high probability trade. Don't take it. I had a talk with another trader about his signal bars, and he's ignoring his signal bars, and his trades are working, but he's going to reinforce a bad habit that's going to come back to bite him. And so, I basically told him, you can't use those signal bars. Yeah, it works a lot, but it fails a lot too. So anyway, we run back up to the highs. You make a high, you try to go higher once, you try to go higher twice, and it fails. So that's a double test, a nice signal bar. You may take that one. Just make sure you got enough room to scalp out, or let it break lower and then drop your limit order far enough to where you do. And this is why, because it tries to bounce here. But notice you made a newer swing high here. You actually try to go higher once, twice. There's a failed second entry long right there. But it's just not a great signal bar. If it closed real bearish, maybe. But notice how it breaks higher here and fails and turns. It just goes short right there. That's the better entry, and that does confirm the short-term trend line. And boom, look at it go. If you're just patient, when these trades are not so good, it's usually not very long till it does give you a good setup. Because what's happening is it's all your weak traders taking these bad entries, and the stronger traders wait for something like this, a little trap. And then they realize they got people trapped, and look at it go, boom. And then it's a real simple, easy trade. You don't have to sit there riding this out, hoping and praying that you're right. And a lot of times not being right. But we drop on down, come back, and you just don't get a setup there. It's your signal bar, that ugly bullish bar. Not bearish enough. You get a lower high here, but I don't think you want, this bar is too bullish again. And so even if it wasn't, you wouldn't want to go short that low. And notice it break, you get a break. You actually get a close outside. This one's not convincing, but evidently it's good enough. And then we're rocketing the other way. Close outside, move to a new high into 2 o'clock. And there's just not a setup to go long here. You could look at this as a failed second entry short, but that failure is really right here. Notice your new low, first entry, second entry, and it doesn't come back to the EMA, so I just don't like it. And I think it breaks higher and then comes back, but I'm not sure. It's one you could argue to be green maybe, but I don't like it. I'm not even going to mark it green. And that pretty much did it for today. So again, the volatility was a little lower today. Just a range day. There were a lot of trades today, though. There weren't many this afternoon. Really, from 11 o'clock up until about 1, there wasn't much. And then there's maybe one more decent trade in the afternoon, maybe 2, depending on how much aggression you want to take on. But that's what I saw today. So hope you had a good trading day. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.